60 Plus Racing Adventures is the iRacing League for well-seasoned veteran racers. All of our drivers tonight, 60 years of age or older, and they go on every single week to prove that age is no barrier to sim racing if you've got the racing passion. And almost all of our drivers, lifelong afflicted racing fans. And as the years have gone on, they found themselves here on iRacing with this community, a very special community that creates some great racing. A great place for all these drivers to race against each other in a fair, respectful and like-minded community. And for season 25, this is their season finale from Watkins Glen International, boot full layout. David Haynes here with Ewan O'Leary, Hugo Lewis, our director, with the cameras, the replays, all of that for you in this broadcast. We're looking forward to the two races, and before we can go to race number one, we gotta go qualifying. We gotta look at where we stand in this championship coming into the final round.
Certainly do. It's the championship finale here tonight. Watkins Glen boot at the 1st of March after a long season. 12 rounds through it, even a couple of ovals thrown in there as well, like last week. Yeah, it's a good season, a great community as well. Great idea, I guess, as well. It's not like something I've ever seen before in iRacing or in sim racing. So, great, respectful community, and hopefully good racing as well, as we often see in this series.
For many seasons now, they've been in the Indy Pro 2000 entry-level stepping stone open wheeler. Enough horsepower that you've got to show it some respect, but low enough horsepower that it does slipstream and does race very closely together. Presents the right balance of individual challenge versus that racing nous that the drivers need. This is the championship standings as they come into the final round. Things sure are looking good for Ragnar Wisloff. He's been on a tear of form in the last 2 years. He's ahead of John Morgan, one of our Super 70s drivers. Wrap your head around that one. It means I've got at least 50 good years of sim racing left in me. Russ Addy, Mike McCormick, Gary Bystrom, Marcel Sproining, Donald Fitterer, Mike Grandy, Randy Shoemaker and Gerhardus Jorrison make up our top 10 in points after 11 rounds have been run, with just this one last to go.
Certainly, I mean, the thing that's even more impressive, I guess, is that Morgan's standing second in the championship as well as being first in the Super 70s. So, yeah, very, very impressive indeed. And there's been a number of impressive drives so far this season. You mentioned there that, obviously, Ragnar Wisloff has been having a good time of things this season, but hasn't been able to win for... well, he wasn't able to win last week, so by his standards, that's a relative run of bad form. Not winning either of the two races last week, so we'll be looking to come back this time around. It's a double header, as all of these races are, qualifying then a race, and yeah, we'll do it all over again. We'll get to the end of race one, have enjoyed ourselves, and we'll have to look forward to a second race, thankfully, but back to back, which is the fun thing about this series as well. Lots of racing in one night.
Yeah, absolutely. So how's that qualifying going? Well, I think a bunch of our drivers are starting to all wrap up on it. Randy Shoemaker and Mike McCormick are looking like the front row at the moment. There is Mike McCormick just subtly improving on his second lap.
Yeah, just second place at the moment, just a couple of temps away. It's a pretty difficult circuit, Watkins Glen. It's one of those where you can gain and lose quite a lot of time here and there, and so it's going to be a real challenge in qualifying, especially. And so we'll see how they all get on. It's especially going to be a challenge in the race as well. Speaking before the broadcast a little bit about that uphill run towards up through 2, 3 and 4, where the barriers really close in. And there's some famous iRacing pile-ups, we'll say, that happen up there. So hopefully we can avoid them as well when we get towards this race in about 5 minutes.
So, which drivers are left out on track with a chance to improve? Gerhardus Jorrison, Ulf Olsen, Russ Addy, Jack Turner. In fact, don't know if Olsen actually might have used up all of his, but it definitely looks like Addy and Jorison could improve. Here's Gahardis Jorison through the final corners. Needs to improve on a 141.7 if he's going to improve his grid slot. And my goodness, he's just gone straight to pole.
Wow, that is an impressive time there, an impressive improvement as well. More than half a second for Jorison to be able to move up on a 41.1, but there's still plenty behind who are going to look to improve here, like Rusadi in that car just up in front. Has had a couple of poles so far this season, but this isn't going to be one of them by the looks of that, stopping and quite far down there in 9th place.
Yeah, indeed. Give me some challenges with moving forward in this race coming up. These cars race in a pack, and there are many opportunities around Watkins Glen here specifically for the slipstream to be incredibly powerful. It's what can often cause those incidents in the run from turn 1 up through the S's and towards where you've got to kind of go single file through that bus stop chicane.
Certainly do. If you want to make it through, that is. It's a real... I don't want to call it a circuit spoiler, but I can't say I enjoy it either. It's one of those that's really nice to drive through on your own, but pretty bumpy and pretty disheartening if you are trying to make a move on somebody. As Bob Curtin's going to come over the line here with a half-second improvement as well to jump up from 22nd to 19th. So that's good for him. But yeah, in terms of side-by-side battling and actually making overtakes, the inner loop there, the bus stop chicane, really does spoil it a little bit. And of course, I really enjoy that turn 5 when it's obviously really fast after coming down the long straight. Obviously, it's not seen very often anymore coming in there at full speed, but it would be a fun corner to go through in these cars after not being interrupted through that bus stop chicane, which is going to catch many people out just like that.
Yeah, Bob Kern demonstrates exactly how these low-slung, short wheelbase cars can get very upset by leaping across the curbs. They'll bottom out on the central skid plate very easily, and if they do, they'll spin like a top if you're not careful, given that short length, that small size, that short wheelbase. Once they lose their grip, very easy for the rear to snap around. Same happens later on into the race as the rear tyres start to wear out a little bit. The drivers lean on them through the long corners here, and the rear can eventually try enough and let go. So 30 seconds left in this qualifying session. Most of our drivers have used their allotted laps. Gene Moore has a 144.7 to beat, and does it handily, a 143.4, so he was one of the last drivers to the line, and he moves himself up. Bob Kern has used all the laps, and sort of taking this as a little bit of an extended warm-up, and we'll have 26 drivers with a qualifying time, 3 more without, who might still take to the grid for what will be a rolling start.
Certainly will, and will be a good grid as well to start this one off. If everybody does take the start, that'll be the biggest grid we've had for 3 weeks, so that'll be nice to see. But that's it for qualifying. As you mentioned, it's not rare to see somebody using the back end of qualifying there as a little bit of a warm-up session, as a bit of more practice, because after all, 10 minutes to get just your couple of laps in there is quite a long time indeed.
Let's take a look at that grid with that first qualifying session completed. For the penultimate race of Season 25 in 60 Plus Racing Adventures, Gahardis Jorison has the pole, the front row on the inside for the race start. He'll be sharing that 2-wide rolling start front row with Randy Shoemake. Behind them, Mike McCormick and Barry Hills, and as you think about the Drivers' Championship, think about the Teams' Championship as well. Great result from Jorison and Hills to have both of their cars on the front 2 rows. Then you've got John Morgan and Paul Stump for positions 5th and 6th on the grid. Mike Grandy, Ulf Olsen, Russ Addy, Jack Turner, Robert Love, Bruce Poole are the first 6 rows. Then we have Eugene Clark for 13th and Douglas Beasley, Marcel Sproening, Richard Coulomb, Bill Smitham and Eric Block. Then Bob Kern, Joel Martin, one of the series admins, a long time racer in this league, Franz Josef Sturm, Peter Hellstrom, Jerry Kerr, JC Hay, Gene Moore, Pierre Dionne, last driver with a qualifying time, and we very likely may still see Franz Brink, Richard Varley, and Craig Vaught. Did you notice something that's maybe missing from that rundown, Ewan?
Go on. I don't know what you're going to say, but go on.
Our champion-elect?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not here at the moment. Well, not on that qualifying route. I guess when you've already won the championship, then why not? I suppose. But yeah, sadly not on the grid by the looks of things, and that will be a disappointment really. But it gives somebody else a chance to win, quite frankly, because we've seen a lot of Ragnar Vizlov winning so far this season. Trying to count the amount of events
this has
where he
happened
hasn't
before,
won.
though.
Yeah,
He'll show up to race number 2, and then he'll win it. And we'll speak to him afterwards, and he'll say something like, "Oh, sorry, mountain biking went late," or my golf instructor was slightly delayed," or I don't know.
Something like that. Yeah,
Don't count it. What I say, he's got form to say. Don't necessarily write him off for the whole night.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye out for that, of course, a little bit later. But in terms of races where he's not picked up a single victory in either of them, both of the oval events, which I guess maybe is not to his liking quite as much as the road events, but only one road event has he not picked up a win in either race. That was at Road America. I suspect he wasn't there for Road America because he wasn't on the podium either, and he does have a round, according to my list, that he did miss this season, so I reckon that might be the one. But yeah, it'd be pretty rare to see him not here, and not winning because he's had so much success this season.
So we get the full tour of the circuit, and we are using the full circuit on this formation lap. You see that means we do go into the boot, and it presents many challenges around this part of the track as well. This is a tough one for these kind of cars right here, because as you go uphill, it's sort of a late apex, can be off camber, and how many times have you seen a car in any category just go a little wide, just clip that grass and spin into the inside wall at the toe of the boot?
Yeah, it happens very, very often. The boot is just a difficult section altogether. It's why it's been off the NASCAR schedule for so long, I suppose. They don't use the boot anymore. I don't think they still do. It makes this circuit a lot more difficult than just the short layout, where things stay relatively simple. But it's a very flowing circuit, and what you mentioned about the tyres earlier on is going to be very, very important, because it is a very flowing circuit. There's a lot of load on these tyres. There's a lot of corners where there's quite sustained high load on these tyres, and that's really going to wear them away even during a short race like this. So that is going to be something to manage, and something that needs managing throughout the 15 laps in both races this evening.
So for the final round of 60 plus racing adventures in season 25, pace car is going to pull in Gerhardus Jorgensen and Randy Shoemake on the front row. The green flag's going to wave and we will go racing. Decent start from Gerhardus Jorgensen, but I notice Morgan on the third row getting a really good jump. Very tentative on the brakes in towards turn 1, and Ulf Olsen dives through to pick up some positions. Eric Block, unfortunately, not making it cleanly through turn 1. Almost everyone else has, though. No tyre warmers for these cars. They are on quite cold rubber as we start off, and almost a squeeze between third and fourth there.
Yeah, that's exactly where the incidents normally come from, but they just about got through up the top of the hill there. Big moves and side by side into the bus stop chicane between Jorgensen and Shoemake. Oh my goodness me! That was Olsen, was it maybe? Sorry, it was Morgan and McCormick, who have both gone off in a wild fashion. There's at least 5 cars here off at the bus stop chicane. That yellow and green car went for an absolute ride there. That was wild, and unfortunately, we've had a lot of victims of that incident.
Yeah, can I get my ticket refunded on Ulf Airways? He was very brave on the brakes in towards turn number 1, picked up some positions, but then has clearly been missighted in the pack as they've come towards the bus stop chicane, and he has plowed straight through and started a little bit of carnage, and it means this is the battle for the lead up front now between Gerhardus Jorrison, Randy Shoemake and Barry Hills, and then there's a bit of fresh Finger Lakes, New York State air between them and fourth.
I think in that incident we're just getting word of those coming through now who are indeed in the pit lane. I think Morgan and McCormack are both in there so far. Here's Olsen, just gets way too late on the brakes there. Complete misjudgment, completely unintentional of course, and just a complete misjudgment there, but has taken out. Oh, as we got off the road for Barry Hills going down towards turn 1 as well. Yeah,
indeed, Barry Hills off the road contacts with Shoemake even, was it? Yeah, battle for second and third here. Things were so clean in turn 1 and up the hill, and have gotten messy thereafter. Gosh, I struggle to pin that on Shoemake though.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you, it's a little bit hard to tell, but also unfortunate for Barry Hills. That's the first thing you can say, definitely, about that one. Just really unfortunate. And that's allowed Gerhardus Jorrison to really go up the order and get a bit of a lead now. But yeah, as you say, it was clean towards turn number 1, not so clean around the rest of the circuit, unfortunately, here on lap 1, which has claimed a few victims, unfortunately.
We look now at Eugene Clark, and you see that's the rear of the car just stepping out as he leans on it too hard through the long and fast corners of Watkins Glen. The penultimate corner has bitten him, and he's found the expensive Armco of Watkins Glen. This is Russ Addy, previous champion, sitting in fourth in the tow of Paul Stump for third.
This is going to be the problem at Watkins Glen. The fast flowing corners is not going to make it easy to follow, and even harder to make overtakes. But let's see if Russadi can do it in towards turn 1, where we saw that incident last lap around. Thankfully, everybody sensible on the brakes this time. I'm going to look for the run up into the bus stop, which is, well, not much easier really than making it into turn 1.
It's a bit of a race off the pit road there, and this looks like Paul Stump almost giving way, offering up the inside line to Russ Addy, who knew he didn't want to pass into towards turn 1 and then immediately get passed back. He wanted to look to pass at this section of the track, and my goodness, that is all 4 in the air, no doubt. Makes the pass stick. That was a really rough ride over the first curb.
Really what you want to avoid in these type of cars. They don't really deal with the curves very well. And you can't often get away with that. So fair play for Rosati to hold on to that. But it was quite a ride. It looked like it would have been. And certainly in real life that would have moved a few things around. But yeah, my word, that was pretty wild. Over the curb. He has got it done though, up to third, and you get the feeling that Russadi's race pace might be a little bit better than maybe his qualifying pace showed earlier on.
Yeah, we'll see if he can close that sort of 3.5 seconds between himself and the pointy end of the field. Randy Shoemake doesn't appear to quite be able to go with the pace that Gerhardus Jorrison has. And remember, Jorrison stole that pole position away very, very late in the session, so showed he had a lot of speed there.
It's already getting a couple of car laps over the over Stump just behind for third place as the field just begins to spread out a little bit. So that's all good news. It's pretty good news for Jorrison right now as well, because he's got a bit of a lead and he's holding that over Shoemaker right now as Brunning tries to make a move for 7th place.
He's in the slipstream of Jack Turner, who's offering no defence. Bruining almost hitting the rev limiter in the top of 6th gear. Looks to the inside, and we'll get a little bit of curb, nowhere near as much as Russ Addy did. And that moves Bruining through into 7th. Battle just in front of him is Grandy and Poole as well, so there's a lot going on in this group.
This is where the action is really from 5th place on downwards. Not only to 8th, but it's not far to the rest. Grundy just gets out the way there, and Bruce Poole going to be up a place, and maybe another one for Bruning. Oh, nearly trying to get up the inside. Not sure why Grundy just pulled over and let Poole through there, really. But I guess just decided that he's faster at this stage and didn't really want to get in the way.
So Mike Grandy calling out that he's going to have to pit, and I have no idea why, unless he's nursing a little more damage than we can see. I didn't spot any. He doesn't have a black flag. No meatball.
Qualifying fuel still in that car, maybe? That's my only theory.
Got to have just tapped the wall or one of the curbs somewhere and bent the steering.
It is easily done to leave your qualifying fuel in, by the way. I've done it before. So, I'm sure we all have. So, I don't know. It's just the fact that it's after only 4 laps. He's in again. But I don't know. It's probably not. As you say, the walls aren't far away here in a number of places, and so it may be difficult to grab it. May not be difficult to grab it somewhere around this circuit.
Stump has had a little bit of an excursion through the plentiful and generous runoff of turn number 1. You get a little wide out there, and you continue to push out wide on the wrong side of the camber. Hard mouth moment there between JC Hay and Jerry Kerr. Jerry Kerr was very close as he forced his way through, and then June Moore will line up next.
That was I was really worried then the two wheels were going to make a bit of contact. They were going to bounce up into the air into quite a big accident, but thankfully they left each other just about enough room to make that one work, and that's Kerr up to 13th position. Moore just behind as well in the 15th place, looking to gain some more places here. All three of these are massively up on their qualifying positions, have been making great progress so far this race.
Yeah, so right now, settling into the rhythm of this race, tyres are about as warmed up as you're ever going to need from them, so they're starting to deliver. These cars are quite sensitive to how much fuel is in them, so as you go through the race and you keep burning the fuel away, they tend to keep getting faster right up until the last 2 or 3 laps of the race. So there's a sweet spot somewhere 2/3 of the way through this race where you've got the tyres in, you've burnt the fuel down, but you haven't completely gotten rid of the tyres. Jorissen's had a drama. Jorissen has gone and lost 2 seconds from his lead at the very, very front of the race.
And he's not far away from the bus stop chicane either, so I wonder...
And Shoemaker's gotten closer, and Addy has also dropped back off of that. Something's going on here, unless Randy Shoemaker's just gone and found 0.2 of a second that no one else has got. Sorry, 2 whole seconds that no one else has got.
Yeah, that's a bit less likely than 0.2. Let's see when they come over the line here whether there is anything to talk about in terms of lap times here. They're mainly in the mid to low 41s up front of the field right now. Paul Stump on the last lap, by the way, was a few seconds off the pace and has dropped back in 4th place, and he was trailing Rosadi as we saw earlier on, but has dropped back a little bit on lap 5. Let's see what the lap times are going to be through lap 6 here for Jorissen especially, because 43.1, it's a little bit slower, but it's not out of the realms of possibility that he just made a small mistake and there's no real incident there, just Schumacher just gaining time.
Yeah, so you're watching at home, we can't afford the royalty, so you've got to queue up your own Kenny Loggins danger zone as Russ Addy gets all of them airborne without permission to buzz the tower. That was a super gutsy move, using up all of the track as he made his way up into 3rd place with that move a couple laps ago. This is your top 3 in shot here. Jorissen leading the way from Shoemaker, who, as we saw, closed up a bit on that last lap, and Addy dropped back a bit. So could have caught some traffic. That is how not to take that for Jerry Kerr. He's turned in too early. And no heroics, unfortunately.
Oh dear, look at the damage on that car as well as it pulled away. That was horrific. As it pulled out the barrier and towards pit lane, you'd imagine, is Douglas Beasley as well. I think we saw him just in front of the leaders, unless this is a separate one, but straight into the wall. Yeah, that was straight in front of the leaders as we were watching them a little bit earlier on and trying to figure out what the hell was going on between some of them in terms of lap time. Yeah, a couple of mistakes starting to creep in. A couple of errors starting to happen through the midpoint of this race now.
A couple of North Americans here with the Club West Marcellus Bruining and the Club Canada Bruce Poole, right on board with the battle for 5th place. I love this view because you get to see the gears, you get to see the shift lights, and it happens sometimes with this car at some tracks, it can happen here, that with a slipstream, it becomes actually difficult to pass if you start hitting the rev limiter at the very, very top of 6th gear. But, it might be made easy as Bruining has a lock-up into 1.
Yeah, that's going to give a free invitation for Poole to go down the inside there, and Bruining's going to have to tuck back in again and try and come back through on the and re-attack his opponent here. Let's see. Well, a good slipstream as these cars do provide up towards the bus stop. He is going to go for it as well after his mistake at turn 1, and with the inside line he's going to retake the place, get a big hop and a skip and a jump over the first curb of the bus stop, and Bruining's back into the top 5 again.
It really is a triple jump sometimes, isn't it, when they take that super aggressive but potentially dangerous line through that most committed section of the racetrack. Bruining gets his spot back, but as they've duelled and lost a bit of time, Jack Turner is hooked to the back of the train on this one. So, in 7th place.
I mean, look at the gap all the way even back to Kern there in 12th place. There's only 10 seconds back there, and there's good 8 cars there, so it's a really congested part of the order. And if these two start fighting, then they're going to start to become a bit of a cork in the bottle here, with everybody just following them. A couple of lap cars involved there as well, you can see in the background.
Penultimate corner, pretty easy in a GT car or other cars, but you've seen that the 5th gear corners really struggle for these drivers, that they don't overdo it, don't go past the limit of the grip, and you can turn in, feel like you got it gripped up, and have the tail let go if there's just a little bit too much speed. For the lead of the race though, they're nose to nose.
Oh,
and
my word.
Jorissen's going to look to defend his lead from Shoemake. They're too wide through the bus stop. You know who this benefits? The man in 3rd who's suddenly within a second of them. Shoemake had a good run in the slipstream, had a go. Jorissen brave enough on the brakes to defend it, but it costs them both time.
Well, that was impressively respectful between the two through the bus stop, just leaving each other the right amount of room there. Jorissen also being able to hold on to the lead as well. But you're absolutely right, Rosati is going to be the main beneficiary of all of that, because it costs them both a lot of time. Addy's going to be right on the back of them now, applying a lot of pressure, and he's going to try and make an attempt at a move, you'd imagine, at some point. He often does turn up during these broadcasted races on RaceSpotTV. Rosati did win at the first race at Summit Point, and he won the second race at Spa, which we used, which we broadcast on RaceSpotTV. And so maybe he'll be winning a race live here again at Watkins Glen, but he's got a bit of work to do in the next 6 laps to achieve that.
And made a little bit of a meal of the final corner there as well, turning in on the grass, and then got out a little wide, very, very close to that wall on the exit of the final corner. That's one of the places you can get a bit of aero push, go a little bit too quick, or any mistake sees you brush that wall and could damage your steering or your suspension. Now I think about it, very likely what could have happened for Mike Grandy, for example, because it's the only corner here where your racing line is as close to the wall as you can possibly go, and second and third take that airborne bucking Bronco line through the inner loop again.
Yeah, it is the final corner where you're most likely to pick up a bit of damage with the wall. Obviously, it's not far away at that particular corner. Well, to be fair, through most of the boot, it's not that far away, but you're not likely to run out near it. Certainly not like you are at the final corner. And it is, of course, on the outside of you at turn 3 as well, but you don't often go out there in these cars. It's pretty, I don't want to say easy flat out, but you're not particularly nervous through there. So yeah, I think the final corner, if we are looking at damage for Grandy, I think it is going to be final corner that may give us our answer there, and maybe just gave him that little bit of damage that needed repairing in the pit stop that he made earlier on. But we are about to hit the 2/3 mark in this race now, and it's the point where you mentioned we'll be probably going fastest really with this car now, but it doesn't look like these three will be going the fastest they've gone all race, because it looks like they're going to fight through the 2/3 mark of this race.
No, not if they're squabbling. Of course, the fastest lap of the race is very often set by someone who picks up a very, very good slipstream at a track like this. Other tracks less so, but so slipstream dependent to set that fastest lap of the race here. If you started the lap a second behind someone and then just picked up the slipstream down the long straights, that would certainly help you. Russ Addy's going for some unconventional lines here, and they're going to go too wide at the top of the S's. Jorrison offers up the inside. Randy Shoemake has his nose to the lead. Russ Addy's got a mega slipstream, and they are 3 wide for the lead of the race. Addy smells danger, and he's the first to back out of it. Jorrison, though, also very ginger, and they both lose a lot of time. Shoemake leads by a second.
Yeah, that was both Jorrison and Addy just backing off really into the bus stop there. They didn't want to get involved in a crash, certainly. They didn't want to go 3 wide into that corner by any means, and so they've just dropped back. They might well regain that second, but Shoemaker might well be a little bit difficult to catch again now, because with a second, only what 4.5 laps to go, it is not going to be easy to get to him and of course make a move as well, which either of these two would have to.
Definitely shaping up for a good finish. I think we've seen more 1-lap pace out of Jorrison and Addy, but Shoemaker's just been very smart in when he's attacked and when he's backed off, and that's sort of key to these higher speed, higher slipstream tracks in this car.
Yeah, it is a circuit that suits this car well by the looks of things in terms of the racing.
I wince every time we see Addy go through that final corner, how much of the curb he uses up, how close to the barrier he wants to go.
It's a great corner. It's a corner that you wouldn't often see in modern motorsport anymore, where you have to get so close to the wall and be so committed on a non-street circuit anyway, I suppose. It's an absolutely fantastic corner, and now Rosati is using not only the run through the final corner, but mainly the run through turn 1 to get to the outside of Jorrison, use a hint of a slipstream from Shoemaker, and should be able to get through. Jorrison gives him the room, and Rosati is indeed up to second and up to first.
That's Shoemake's had a drama, and Addy goes through into the lead of the race. Jorrison looks to go around the outside of him. There was a little bit of traffic in the form of Piazzione, and I wonder if Shoemaker just pushed wide across too much curb.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure whether there was direct contact between the two, but there may have been a distraction here for Randy Shoemaker. Let's see. Up over the curb. We've spoken about it so often today. It's a really, really dangerous curb, and that's exactly why.
Shoemaker could also go for a visor tear off, I reckon, based on that angle. But again, this is what we're talking about. It's so risky to take too much of the curb at the inner loop, at the bus stop, whatever you want to call it. And here they are trying to get past Dione.
Addy got very loose there and didn't make a great pass, and here we go side by side in the final 2 turns.
Addy's willing to take the risk. He wants this in the final corner. He's swooping all of the racing lines, but with 3 laps to go crossing the line right now, 6/10 to cover all of our top 3, and Paul Stump in the background has reduced his margin to the leaders from 6 seconds down to 3, the way that they've been squabbling, going back and forth. There's 2 seconds between Jorrison in 3rd and Paul Stump in 4th. Stump only needs that to come down to 1 second, and he's part of a 4-way fight for the lead. Let's see It goes with Addy leading, running middle of the road, offering up the inside line to Randy Shoemake, who carries the slipstream all the way through into the lead onto the racing line, and is a little more careful with how much steering input he's got as he leaps over particularly that first curb.
Yeah, it's the first one that's really going to get you and going to send you off into the runoff area, or indeed the wall on the exit of turn. Well, it's not really a turn at all, it's just the bus stop chicane. But absolutely, we are seeing Paul Stump now really close in as a result now on all of this. But whether he's going to get there in time for the end of the race, I'm not entirely sure. I do think that Shoemaker's actually got the measure of Addy maybe in the final moments of this race. I didn't think he would have, but judging by these opening moments, Addy is struggling to stay with the 3 car right now. And maybe over the last 2 laps, we are going to see a victory for Shoemake, but there's a long way to go before we get there.
These 25 to 30 minute length races in this car, you can manage your tyres a little bit to make sure you've got some grip at the end. It's about the limit of how long you can just, put in 100%, just beat and lean on the tyres every opportunity. They do start to heat up, start to slip a little more, start to give out about this point in the race. They'll be thankful for the cooler 24 Celsius track surface temperature though. You can see there's 3 battles, all of them very delicious inside of the top 10. Now battle for the lead, Broining vs Poole vs Turner in the middle of the top 10, and Robert Love and Franz Josef Stum for the 9th and 10th position.
Yeah, this is a good fight for 9th right now. We've got Martin not too far away as Russaddy's off. That's the bus stop chicane again, claiming another victim unfortunately, and it's Russaddy, who was in 2nd place, is now going to drop down to an even tastier battle for 4th now by the looks of things, with Brunning going through on the outside line. But it looks like Shoemake might well be away with that one in the lead of this one overall, because now Russaddy, as his most likely challenger, has fallen a victim to that bus stop chicane.
Yeah, a problem for Russaddy, and his chances of the win have absolutely evaporated on the penultimate lap. Shoemake with a little bit of gap to Gerhardus Jorgensen to Stump, and then this group of cars right here, and he's just done it all by himself. Just too much curb, too much steering angle as the car is in the air and then lands unsettled. Lucky to avoid too much more damage with that, honestly.
Yeah, was lucky to avoid the wall, because it is easy to find it out there, even though there is a tarmac runoff and plenty of space to the outside wall there. You can often find it still, just because of the speed really that you're going when you get to the bus stop chicane, but that has eliminated chances of a win. Addy will at least try and pick up the pieces and at least finish 4th in this one. At least try to.
Barney's got the white flag and we start the final lap of the race. The battle is all on for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. You see them all here. Jack Turner starting to catch his way onto this group. Randy Shoemake, Gerhardus Jorgensen just need to see this one out to get to a podium position, and a little bit of contact as JC Hay moved across in the braking at one of the more challenging corners, but they're side by side going into the bus stop, and Broining takes the position away from Addy. Addy still side by side with Bruce Poole. Jack Turner and Barry Hills catching up onto this fight, 13 seconds off the overall lead.
Great racing and great respect between them all as well. Brunning should get away with 4th place now, but Russaddy is having a real torrid time holding on to this top 5 place now. He's got Poole, Turner and Barry Hills just behind. That's a great recovery from Barry Hills, by the way, to get up to 8th place after dropping outside the top 10 as a result of that spin at turn 1. But what a fight we have seen between these guys now. It's, great respect through the bus stop and the outer loop as well. But Addy has held on to that top 5. He looks like he is going to hold on to that.
Well, here's Randy Shoemake. He spent the first half of the race waiting, then he saw his opportunity to take the lead. He's run away with it, and for the penultimate race of Season 25 and 60 Plus Racing Adventures, Randy Shoemake takes the win from 2nd on the grid. Jorgensen not able to convert his pole, and elsewhere, well, Russ Addy was in with a chance of a win. Now he's in a drag race with Broining to try to steal 4th place at the line. And he does it by 1,000th of a second.
Wow.
Not the only drag race out of the final corner into Barney with the checkered flag.
Great to see. You don't often see drag races to the line at Watkins Glen, but we've just seen 2. That one separated by 0.2 of a second between Sturm and Love for 9th place. A few more close battles over the line there, but 1,000th of a second between Rossetti and Broining there. Marcellus Broining in the 61. Fantastic racing between those guys. The battle for 4th in the end was possibly more entertaining than the battle for the win, although Randy Shoemake did a good job of making sure that battle didn't last very long, and he quickly took control of the race, which is exactly what he did.
Well, my oh my, that was pretty exciting for many of the positions inside of the top 10, all of them in the balance right to finishing line on the 15th lap. Randy Shoemake with the win from Gerhardus Jorrison, Paul Stump, Russ Addy, Marcellus Broining, the biggest move so far to 5th from 15th on the grid. Bruce Poole, Jack Turner, Barry Hills, but Franz Josef Sturm, the biggest mover inside of the top 10 as he moved 12 positions up to that 9th place finish. And the top 10 was rounded out by Robert Love. Behind them, Joel Martin, just a second back. Then Olsen, Kern, Hellstrom, Granzi, Coulomb, Craig Vaught, Eric Block, Gene Moore, Mike McCormick. And the last car on the lead lap, I think, would have been John Morgan. Lap down, Bill Smith and Eugene Clark, JC Hay, Richard Varley and Jerry Kerr. 2 laps, Pierre Dionne. Retirements, Douglas Beasley and Franz Brink. Watkins Glen, I mean, delivers time after time in any of these sort of medium, lower horsepower cars. Anything that's susceptible to a little bit of a slipstream, it's just so strong with that long run uphill from turn 1 through the S's and to the challenging braking zone of the bus stop.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's provided some great racing over the first 15 laps here for us in this event. Anything too controlled, anything too powerful around here, I think flops a little bit in terms of racing. I don't find it too exciting, but in these kind of cars, it is absolutely perfect, where they're not glued to the road. It's possible to make mistakes with them, and it's also one of those where, as you mentioned, not much power with these vehicles either, which means they spend longer on the straights, they spend longer in the slipstream, and they get side by side as well. So we'll see how race 2 gets on, of course, coming up soon. But race 1 certainly is delivered for us, and it's a great show of what these cars can do.
The opportunity now to speak to our race 1 winner as Randy Shoemake joins us. You qualified on the front row, but Watkins Glen, such a challenging track to make clean passes.
David, can you hear me?
Absolutely can, Randy.
I want to thank you all for broadcasting. This has been a long time coming. And first off, we've got to congratulate Ragnar Wislaw for his dominating championship performance this season. And all I can do is thank him. He spent 45 minutes to an hour with me this week, teaching me the line that he runs. I cannot even come close to duplicating it, but this is for him.
It's incredibly magnanimous of you, and one of the key parts of the 60 Plus Racing Adventures community, isn't it? I mean, we've just seen plenty of hard racing, but all of you then, look forward to the next race with each other, always trying to help everyone else improve. You've been around 60 Plus Racing Adventures a while.
Quite a while. We started on this car, I believe, my second or third season, before everybody else caught up and got used to it. It fit me very well. I think I came within a point of Russ Addy getting a championship here. I haven't gotten it to him, and Donald Fitterer and Ragnar have done so well ever since in dominating that. We've got a great group of guys that race ovals. We've got Ragnar in them occasionally. In fact, he's the one that designed today's strategy basically off of an oval race, but we were oval cars that we ran here at Watkins Glen. So there's a good group of 6 of us that race endurance cars, race oval cars in this league, race this PM18, and participate in some of their other special activities.
So with all the learning you did before this race, what's still to learn for race number 2?
Stay cleaner. I messed up, I believe, the entrance to the bus stop twice. Something that I had done all this week since he had taught me the correct line was I ran as if I was by myself all the time, and it wasn't until this morning I realized I've got to prepare and not lose the information I had, but make it an extra tool and get through that with traffic. The line that he showed me is to be out on your own and pull away or catch up, but not be racing side by side with.
Yeah, really interesting. This is a track that seems to pop up almost every season in 60 plus racing adventures, and everyone still seems to have something to learn about the secrets of Watkins Glen.
And I've made the comment to Joel, another congratulations to him, John, Mark Leeson, Wally Mosby for another fantastic admin season that they've contributed. But I tease them all the time. I said, everybody that watches us on RaceSpotTV thinks we only run 4 different tracks. It seems like they alternate the TV broadcast among very, very few, but we do run several tracks this season.
Yeah, lots of Watkins Glen, lots of Nürburgring Nordschleife somehow seems to make the coverage. If you could pick a track that we race that would get broadcast going forward that maybe doesn't get shown that often, what's the Randy Shoemake special?
An oval race in the PM18s. That's one thing that we haven't done. We raced. I think we've cut back from 3 a season to 2 a season, but the guys just get better and better. Some of the races, do have the yellow flags because we have guys that are not, as prolific on them, but they're getting better and better, and their racing is fantastic. I believe that Mike Granby and I finished Gateway at .003, the last race at Gateway.
You're definitely right. That could be something to entertain us some other time. We'll see what season 26 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures holds in store for all of us, but it's crazy as that sort of rolls off your tongue. Season 26 coming up next. I mean, when will 60 Plus Racing Adventures ever end? I hope it doesn't.
That's our wish also, David. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Well, there we go, Ewan. We get to take a little bit of a breather, but it's not too long until all of our drivers come back to qualify again to set a fresh grid for race number 2 and do it all over again at Watkins Glen.
Absolutely, it should be very fun because we've seen a good first race. We've spoken a little bit about quite why these cars work at this circuit, whereas maybe some don't. But yeah, race 2 is absolutely same format, not any silly reverse grids or anything. We're doing a completely new qualifying session, completely new race, but hopefully the same good action we just saw.
Yeah, consider it a little bit of a do-over, and there's a few drivers up and down the field that will be hoping that's the opportunity they get. Mike McCormick started 3rd, finished 20th. Russ Addy challenged for the win, but couldn't do it. Are those your drivers to watch in race number 2? Congratulations to the podium from race number 1, Randy Shoemake, Gerhardus Jorrison and Paul Stump. And stick with us, race 2 is around the corner. for the final race of the final round of 60 plus racing adventures for season 25. I'm so delighted to be at Watkins Glen and to crown a champion. 60 plus racing adventures. It's coming to the end of its 25th season, if you can believe it, and strength to strength to strength. Just goes to show that there is a place amongst the iRacing community for these older sim racers to share their passion, share their style, and to form a great community of like-minded racers. It's real talent here, and probably keeping them all fresh and young, I imagine. I'm only going to feel old once I can no longer fit in a sim rig, so for all of them spring chickens here on the track, they've got qualifying right now, which will set the grid for their second race of tonight. David Haynes here with Ewan O'Leary, Hugo Lewis, our producer. Marcel Sproining was all up and down inside of the top 10 in race number 1, and it looks like he's coming towards to start his first of 2 flying laps, Ewan.
Yeah, had a good race, ended up finishing in 4th about half an hour ago, and so we'll be looking to repeat that, go a little bit better in this second race, and it might be a good chance here to, as long as we don't curse him, to go on board and really get a look at this Watkins Glen circuit from an on-board perspective, because we haven't been able to really do that so far. Getting through into turn 1, the track really falls away from you, using as much of the outside line as possible, and then just running up towards the top of the hill, flat out right from here to the bus stop chicane. Not a lot to do from here, but then after here there is a lot to do for the remainder of the lap.
In this 2-lap qualifying, your standard run plan would be a banker lap, lap 1, and then full attack lap 2, and based on how much curb Marcel Sproining used, I'd suggest this still could have some aspects of banker lap about it. Make sure you don't make any big egregious mistakes on this one, so that it counts, it gives you something on the board, and then try to improve from there.
So this is the boot section where things really do just flow. Don't really want to end up on that curb on the right hand side, and Bruning doesn't really touch it, but does run out to the grass on the left, which is exactly what you need to do. And now down here at this corner, this next corner, which is turn 10, turn 8, sorry, not turn 10, turn 8.
Heel.
Yeah, well, more simply the hill. A lot more runoff there than there has been in the past. And then avoiding that curb on the left again, running out almost to the wall on the right hand side, and then 2 very fast and flowing corners to end the lap.
Yeah, just flicking up into 5th gear and almost holding it flat there for Marcel Sproining. Approaches the final corner to set himself up on the run for his final lap. So looking to see what time he gets at the end of this lap, and then of course carry the speed straight through into his second flying lap. First times are on the board. Sproining is, at least for the moment, 4th. That is all going to change around very quickly, with 27 cars out on track in qualifying and only half of them having come around to complete their first lap. Here's a man potentially still full of adrenaline from his race number 1 win. Randy Shoemaker's about half a lap behind everyone else on track at the moment, which means that we're going to have to wait to see what the first lap looks like, and then again has a chance to throw a cat amongst the pigeons on the second flying lap as well. The moment McCormick from Hills from Garris, Shoemaker crosses the line and goes into 3rd. So now comes the lap where you start to put a little more risk down, lay a little more on the line. Was Kahadis Yorison going to show us through the bus stop?
Almost clipping the wall on the right hand side there at the bus stop chicane, vaulting over the curb completely, and then flying through the rest of it. A very impressive run through the bus stop chicane from Kahadis Yorison here in the 966, and hopefully he can continue on with this lap. And to be fair to him, I believe this is his first lap, so normally, as you mentioned, you kind of go for a banker, you'd at least get a time on the board, and then you'd push a little bit more through the second lap, but clearly Yorison is just willing to lay it all out there from start to finish.
Yeah, part of the team with Barry Hills. see more times coming through on the board. Russ Addy with his second lap only going to third. Not a lot of purple sectors out there, but Stump strings together some good ones to go second. Mike McCormick's already parked up. So for Yorison, 26th without a time, crosses the line, and it's disallowed. Now, what can happen is if you're so aggressive with that curb at the bus stop, the car bottoms out and it's counted as an impact, as a contact.
Maybe that is the case to answer for that one, but yeah, it doesn't seem that Yorison has been able to get a lap on the board at all, despite having been out there, the whole time, been out there doing the lap properly. It wasn't an out lap, certainly. So yeah, we'll be interested to see what happened there. But for the moment, staying way down, and will need a much better lap, of course, to get himself up towards the front and get himself within a shout of the win here. But I would say that the whole of the top 10 do, really, because they're separated by less than half a second at the moment.
I'm reading it wrong, but I think Olsen might have already used all of his laps. We'll see if this improves him at the line. He's treating it as quite an aggressive in-lap, and that's qualifying done for Olsen. I think the last driver really left is Yorison. I think Hallstrom, Olsen, and Addy have used up all of their laps. We saw the first lap for Gerhardus Yorison was disallowed for some reason. We watched most of it on board, and the only thing I can imagine is he either clipped the Armco in the inner loop or, bottomed the car out. So for Yorison, he doesn't look entirely happy with that, but it is an allowed lap time to put him to third. So there you go.
Do you not think that he, do you not think he cost
short of stop?
Exactly. Do you not think he cost himself that 100th by weaving about there?
Well, now he's going to start inside of the second row instead of outside of the front row. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he is a 200 IQ chess master.
That's not 200 IQ. That's more. That's way more. That would be insanity if that were to be the case. But I doubt it somehow. It was very close, and yeah, he is on the inside of the second row now rather than outside of the first. But I think just being up there is kind of important. We've seen how much these races change over the course of the 15 laps, and there is going to be a lot that happens over the course of this one. So it's going to be a very, very interesting watch indeed. I don't think it matters really whether Yorison's second or third. It's much more about the race coming up in over the next 15 laps. It's far more important for the outcome of this event here.
Yeah, so 10 minutes is a very generous amount of time for these cars to get around an out lap and 2 flying laps, and that's why the track goes just a little bit quiet at the end of the 10 minutes. There are other circuits a little longer than Watkins Glen where 10 minutes is pushing things a little harder. We've definitely broadcast a couple of races from Road America, for example, which, to my eternal national shame, is about 200 metres longer than Bathurst is.
How is that possible?
It's just Road America's got a lot of long straights and sort of folds in on itself.
I guess so. That doesn't fit
6,400 metres. I don't know, but it's facts.
No, I don't doubt that, but it doesn't fit right in my head.
You know how much larger an Australian wedge-tail eagle is than a puny American bald eagle, so we got that going for us at least.
I don't know what either of those things are, to be fair, given that I'm thousands of miles from either.
Don't know what a bald eagle is.
I'm not a bald eagle fan, or even a bird fan. I don't know what a single bird looks like, really. So I'm not surprised.
Do you know what grass looks like? That's what I'm starting to hear from you.
I've just about spotted it on the right hand side there. But
have you tried touching it?
No, not often. I try and avoid it.
Oh, unfortunately, I think it shows. Oh, I love you, man. Oh, Ewan. Let's take a look then at our grid to save both of us from going insane. Mike McCormick, what a fantastic qualifying performance from him. He has the front row of the grid on the inside line and more than 0.2 of a second clear of Paul Stump. Gerhardus Jorgensen, the pole sitter from race number 1, will start back in third alongside Barry Hills. Russ Addy and Randy Shoemake, two very rapid drivers in race number 1, share row number 3. Then we find Mike Grandy, who's competitive inside of the top 10 until an unexpected pit stop in race number 1. What can he do in race number 2? He's sharing that row with Greg Garris. John Morgan and Ulf Olsen are 9th and 10th. These paint schemes have got to be messed up because Robert Love is wearing Ulf Olsen's paint scheme. Ulf Olsen is wearing someone else's paint scheme, but the names and times are correct. Bruce Poole and Robert Love are 11th and 12th on our grid. Then Broining, Turner, Eugene Clark, Bill Smith and Douglas Beasley and Joel Martin, who's wearing Jerry Kerr's skin. Peter Hallstrom, who's wearing Jack Turner's skin. Don't know who Richard Coulom's got. But then Bob Kern, Jerry Kerr, Franz Josef Stum, Gene Moore, all super close times there, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and Pierre Dionne's either got Barry Hills or Gerhardus Jorgensen's paint on. And then JC Hay is the last driver with a qualifying time, Richard Varley without one.
Yeah, so missing a couple of drivers from the last race to this one as a result of, I guess, incidents and things that have happened in between the last one and this one. But this is still, that 29 car grid was still the biggest we've had for a few weeks, and this grid is the best we've had for a couple of weeks as well. So good to see. Early morning sunshine by the looks of things here at Watkins Glen. It's probably springtime in sim right now, middle of April. So nice conditions, comfortable conditions for these drivers, and hopefully another good 15-lap race, because the first race was very enjoyable, and hopefully we will see, similar drama and action that we had in that first one.
We've just been through too wide at pace speed, one of those parts of the track that you probably wouldn't want to go too wide race speed through. That inner loop / bus stop / triple jump, definitely one of the more challenging parts of this lap as far as the racing is concerned, because it's not a massive braking zone in these cars. Just sort of, down from 6th gear into 4th gear, just a little stab on the brakes and rotate, but they approach it there often side by side because it's at the end of the longest straight and the greatest slipstreaming opportunity.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you say that they don't want to go through their race speed, but we did see two drivers do it during the race. That previous race, it was Jorgensen and Schumacher. Schumacher, if I remember correctly. But I may be wrong with that one. Anyway, two drivers did go side by side through there at race speed and made it out the other side as well, which you very rarely see. So testament to these drivers and a little bit these cars as well for being able to race so well. But mainly the drivers who have been so respectful of each other and not just crashing into each other, as we see a lot of in sim racing. It's sometimes at the very highest level as well.
2/3 of the way through that pace lap, the pace car likes to go really slow in a straight line and then really book it through the slow corners. It holds a steady speed rather than a dynamic one, and likes to pull into the pit entry super late. There's not much time between that pace car pulling in and Barney dropping the green flag for Mike McCormick, our pole sitter, in red on the front row on the inside to decide how he wants to play this race start and if he can get away. Final race of the season, the pace car is in, they're waiting on the green flag. McCormick anticipates it by just a tiny fraction of a second, and that gets him a good jump down towards turn number 1. Paul Stump looking to go with him. Jorgensen looking to get down the inside in turn number 1, and they're side by side over 2nd place, side by side over 4th place, and Mike McCormick has a handy little lead.
He does, and it will continue to grow as they go up the hill here, side by side. Oh no, contact! Oh dear me, and they all make it through just about, but that was very, very close to being a bit of a disaster at the top of the hill, side by side. Barry Hills on the outside line is going to claim 4th place just about from Grandy, who hopefully is going to avoid a little bit of damage in this race here and not have to take a trip down pit lane as he had to in race 1.
Rare that wheel-to-wheel contact doesn't end in disaster, but Mike McCormick on this first race lap on the cold tyres has had a drama at the outer loop. He's dropped back into second. Paul Stump in the lead as McCormick doesn't have the tyre pressure, doesn't have the grip yet, nearly lost it in one of those long, fast corners. He might still struggle here at the toe of the boot and some of the other corners to go in the lap. Teammates in 3rd and 4th. Any team orders there between Gerhardus Jorrison and Barry Hills, me wonders. And they got Mike Grande, fast starter. He's up 3 positions from 8th on the grid into 5th and already challenging for more as well. So drama at every turn on this opening lap.
Certainly, and it's a clean start as well. Glad to report through this one. The field getting strung out behind, but I don't believe anybody has been off so far during this first lap, which is fantastic to see. I guess other than that small mistake from Mike McCormick, I guess, that dropped him off the lead and gave it to Paul Stump instead. But oh, that's very close for Jorrison. It was through the final corner. That's why we really enjoy this really fast right-hander at the end of the lap, because you have to be committed, get right up next to that wall, but don't touch it. Jorrison, I think, just went slightly over the limit there on that particular lap and did graze it just a bit.
Similar happens at turn 1. If you get out a little bit wide, this car will get high-sided on that exit curb. That's what happened to Mike Grandy. He's now back in 6th. He had to get out of the throttle. Russ Addy passed him up into 5th place. So battling for the lead. Teammates together 3rd and 4th, and a swap at 5th and 6th as they come at full racing speed through the inner loop.
Certainly, it's a nice group we got up front. Field not spreading out too much over the opening lap and a half or so. It's staying relatively close. Now we'll get a view as to what it's like in the pack with Barry Hills here following his teammate Jorrison, and behind Rosadi is just losing a little bit of time, but is he maybe pacing himself for this race? We'll wait and see. But it's a nice front group we have right now, with, you know, all respect to Ragnar Veslov, who is not with us here this race. You know, the fact that he's not here is meaning that we don't have a runaway winner, and we're getting a real big conversation and a real big fight for this one.
It's tough to say if Wislov would run away with it in this kind of circumstance. At this kind of track, you've really got to have a big pace advantage on someone to break this slipstream. You've got to need a mistake from second place if a leader is going to waltz away, and you can see as we keep at race pace, it just all starts to compress back again on the leader as McCormick challenges for the lead, and that's the kind of thing that brings 3rd, brings 4th, brings 5th closer in. McCormick at turn 1 does go through into the lead of the race, and you can see how much closer that brings 3rd and 4th, and they'll all do it once again as they climb up the hill, up into 5th gear, up into 6th gear, and they start hitting that wall of air at the lead that sees all the others slipstream up close. Super defensive line here from McCormick. He's still at driver's right, goes middle of the road, looking to defend his lead. Not a perfect line through here, so what that does is he defends track position and doesn't have the perfect speed. It keeps everyone close to the lead of the race. Some drivers jockeying for position. Here's Greg Garris. He's dropped 3 positions from where he qualified, and he's between John Morgan in front and Bruce Poole and Robert Love behind.
And here's Bruning back in the pack here. 15th place, battling with Smitham at the moment, down in towards the toe of the boot. We'll get up into 14th place, but it's a good 10 places lower than where he finished in race 1, which he'd be very disappointed with to find himself back here. Battling away, of course, and hopefully having a good time, but it's far away from the result that maybe he could have. Maybe he'll be thinking that he should have in this race, because he does clearly have the pace to run top 5 as he did for most of the first race.
No matter where you go, this Indy Pro 2000 PM18 can deliver some close racing, but here at Watkins Glen in the slipstreaming, my goodness, it's even more so. You've got all of your top 6 within 2 seconds. You've got nothing to separate Russ Addy from Barry Hills as Addy makes the move in turn 1. What you've got then there to protect you is the slipstream off the next car going up the hill. It's not like the leaders where you might pass into turn 1 then immediately get passed back. You can leapfrog your way forward when you're in the pack here. But Addy will have to work hard to defend that position. Like Randy going with the leaders here as well. I think Addy's going to have to drop that one back. He will.
Yeah, and that was partly because we saw Yorison give the slipstream to Hills there down the straight, but also Hills just wasn't quite close enough there to... Addy wasn't quite close enough to Yorison to really gain that slipstream benefit you were talking about, or really enough of it to keep the others at bay, as we do have an incident.
Jerry Kerr, Gene Moore, who else is dropping back on the screen? A couple drivers have tangled wheels. Hallstrom might be losing a bit of time. It all starts there. It's a combination. One driver in too hot, one driver checked up. Jerry Kerr comes across the nose.
Well, yeah, someone just going slowly through the bus stop and somebody going a bit too quickly. Coming together, wheel-to-wheel contact and spectacular contact as well through the bus stop, unfortunately. Claiming a couple of them, but to be able to get to lap 4 without seeing anything like that happening is really quite remarkable. And now obviously the kind of rhythm of the race
wide in the final corner, up into the wall. How much damage will he have sustained? He's going to lose a spot to Mike Grandy. The steering wheel is straight. I don't see the wing being bent, but he pushed up so wide and definitely hit the wall in the final corner. Not what you want to do, and he's been one of those drivers we've seen and talked about it repeatedly. Gets a lot closer than the other drivers do.
Certainly does. Speaking of being close, by the way, Paul Stump is very close this time to McCormack. I think closest he's been all day. Addy's going to fall and stay behind, but round the outside goes Stump into the bus stop, and he is going to go through now on McCormack with Yorison and Hills waiting behind. Russ Addy's off at the bus stop.
More pain for Russ Addy. Great move from Paul Stump, but for Russ Addy, came up short of the win in race number 1, and looks like that will happen again. More pain. More pain for him. This is how it happened. He's riding behind Grandy and he just gets that curb wrong. Just a bit too much of it.
At least avoids the wall once again. Does Russ Addy, as he did in the first race as well, albeit this mistake came.
Lead.
Yeah, he is back to the front again. Yeah, it came at a bit of a later time, the last mistake for Addy, but he has made it now. As you say, McCormack is back through again on Paul Stump, so it's a nice move, an unconventional one. You don't see those moves made very often, but he's back through again. But I think this is going to be a battle that to's and fro's throughout, because as you mentioned earlier, the slipstream just keeps these cars so close together.
Back of shot, the 3 cars. Our race 1 winner Randy Shoemake has Ulf Olsen and Super 70s champion John Morgan right behind him. These 3 drivers have the potential to catch our leading 5. Morgan's having a look at Olsen. They're going to be side by side coming up through the S's. There's other cars where that would be a death sentence, but these machines pretty lightweight and have enough downforce that you can get away with it. Cost themselves just a little bit of time though. Morgan not going to be able to defend. Olsen trying to strike back. Not a replay of race 1, thankfully.
Please, definitely not. Of course, that coming at lap 1. Spectacular consequences for him, I'm afraid, but he's back and in this one and doing well again inside the top 10 right now. Things really not spreading out that much, though, in this race right now. Staying very close and entertaining the top 5. Maybe getting a bit of a gap to these 3. To battle over the race win maybe, but there's battles everywhere in this field right now. We're more than a third of the way through already. It's turning into a very entertaining one so far. There's still a long way to go though, and a lot more action still to come.
This is our leading 5, and of course I don't need to read you any gaps between them, but 5th to 6th, just got to wonder, can Randy Shoemake find pace to catch the group in front? It all depends what happens between 1st and 2nd, because we saw that lap where, McCormack had to go into turn 1, Stump had to go at the bus stop, and then McCormack got the lead back. On that lap they lost time. That's Rosati in too hot at the final corner and then washing up not in the kitchen, in the aero.
Yeah, not great news, but seems to be doing okay after that spin, really. By the way, we've just seen Turner off the road, I think, dropping down the order there for Jack Turner. Not back to the pit lane, but has had an incident as everyone gets very close to each other. The teammates getting very close to each other as well. Hill's very nearly into Jorrison as Schumacher's gone off the road at the bus stop by the looks of it, or at least wide. I think he kept it going, but went off course a little bit.
Yeah, the number 3 car's dropped 2 spots there, maybe more. He was obviously pushing hard to try to catch this next group. And now it's John Morgan and Ulf Olsen in 6th and 7th. 2 seconds between Grandy and Morgan. Dramas at the laces of the boot though. Broinings in the fence. Garris is going backwards. 3 cars minimum involved there. Such a tough braking zone as well. You come downhill. It's very steeply downhill as you brake and turn into there, and anytime you have a moment, there's not enough grass to save yourself from the wall, just enough grass to make sure you go backwards into the wall. So that's Garris, Broining, and other blue car might have been Hallstrom.
I think Hallstrom's still going, yeah, but not entirely sure. Just a shame to see, really. Incidents happening at this stage, and unfortunate to see for those who were involved. Bruning definitely with the certainly allowed to feel a little bit aggrieved about that one, because it was certainly hit into and then hit around there, and obviously that damage now will take him out of the race. Certainly takes him out of contention for a good result here by the end, as Hills and Grandy battle side by side. Grandy through up a position
and
into
Jorrison's 4th. Skipped part of the chicane ahead, so he might have a slowdown. Grandy gets 2 for 1 on the teammates up into a podium position. Jorrison's been struggling with that inner loop this time around. He looked pretty good with it in race number 1, but he's been slow at previous times through, and that time he's shortcut the second apex, which I've got to assume gives you a slowdown. It's a pretty significant shortcut. It starts to trim down the leaders. There is a second between Stump and Grandy now that both of the Anglo-Dutch cars have lost a bit of time on this lap.
Well, has that decided that this race will be decided between 2? I somewhat doubt that it will only be McCormick and Stump involved in that fight. I do think at least one of these 3 behind may well get involved from here, but they do have a bit of catching up to do between now and then. So we've gone over the halfway mark in this race now. It's between McCormick and Stump for the moment. It's staying very close, as is this entire field, and everybody's getting close to the wall on the exit of the final corner.
It stands to reason that the fastest racing line is as close to that as your game to get, but it also stands to reason that if you're going to survive 2 15-lap races, you're going to give yourself a little bit more space. So Grandy now is looking like he's going to get counter-attacked by Barry Hills. McCormick and Stump have gone side by side on the way in as well. No one is waiting to try to pull some punches here, and Jorrison has a problem. Jorrison's off the road. Oh, he's clipped the wall and damaged his car. He just cannot get that inner loop right in race number 2.
No, and we're struggling a little bit in race number 1 as well with things. So Jorrison just unfortunate there really, and drops back to pit lane. Just a difficult circuit and a really difficult portion of the circuit as well, as I mentioned earlier on. Would be a lot more enjoyable to drive if it was not in the circuit, in my opinion. But maybe Bill Smith would also agree after that. Contact with the wall. Just a really tricky section leading into the outer loop, of course, that would be very entertaining coming in from very high speed.
An inner loop hater, but that's okay. That's okay. You You can run the no chicane layout to your heart's content on the sim if you want. It doesn't quite pass some of the safety codes for certain categories these days. That's why it was initially put in, similar to the chase at Mount Panorama. A long run into that kind of corner can sometimes create some problems. But on the sim, you can run Watkins Glen without the inner loop, and you can just jump over the chase at Bathurst, if and you so please. Lap 10 of 15, your top 5 in shot here, and what a great run by John Morgan there in 5th to try to catch this leading pack. Now he's with Barry Hills, he's with Mike Grandy, and he's not that far from the lead, as well as Grandy has a little bit of dramas on the exit of the bus stop. You can get away with cutting the track on the exit. It's cutting any of the interior of the chicane that typically gets you in trouble, and they say you cut the course. You'll have to slow down and give up the time gained.
Yeah, that's the voice of iRacing's engineer speaking there.
Basically my cousin.
But yes, it is one of those moments. And a great drive, as you mentioned there, from Morgan as well, to be able to jump up the field in this way. Going to be trying to chase down McCormick, both of them in the Super 70s Championship, and I believe they are the top 2, if you want to call it a bit of a race class, which it isn't officially, but I'll go for it. Then there'll be 1 and 2 at the moment, I believe. Oh no, Barry Hills is involved as well, isn't he? So there's a few Super 70s up here at the moment, and all doing pretty well up inside the top 5. 3 out of 5, all part of that sub-championship. So that's good to see. And all still very much in there for possibly an overall win here in this race as we get into the latter third of this one.
And soon Hugo won't be producing this coverage, he'll be racing in it, so we can look forward to that.
That was rude.
Yes, it was. 5 cars in 3 seconds at the front of the field, and even closer between the leaders. We ride on board with second place Paul Stump, looking at the red leader of Mike McCormick. A little bit of traffic starting to come up for these guys. Is it Pierzione? It would be Pierzione.
I haven't seen much traffic just yet in this race, but we are now towards...
Overall, it's been cleaner than race number 1 as well.
It's been a very clean race, and that's been great to see. You can see that the top 7 separate about 7.5 seconds, and that tells you a lot that you need to know really in this one. We've not seen many pit stops being made, and everybody's staying up towards the front and on the lead lap for the most part. Still got 23 at the 27 on the lead lap, and unfortunately Bruning out of the race after his incident earlier on, but he's the only retirement that we've got in this one so far, so that's all good news. And with 4 laps to go, we'd like to keep it that way, but lap traffic may well be the opportunity for Paul Stump, because in clean air, if you like, in normal racing, he doesn't seem to be able to get really close enough to benefit from a slipstream and get up the inside in towards the inner loop. But we'll see if McCormick's going to be vulnerable up towards the bus stop on this lap, because Stump does look the closest he's been for a little while.
This is about where you want to be though, isn't it? Sort of 2 or 3 car lengths back, because then you close the gap up, and right as you get to them, you've got more speed to try to slingshot past. Better than being right underneath their rear wing leaving turn 1. So McCormick's immediately onto the defensive line, heading towards the bus stop, and realises Stump's far enough ahead that he has to yield, and Stump goes through into the lead. McCormick wanted to defend it, but just didn't have enough speed up the straight, and knew what was good for him, that there's quite a few laps left in this race.
Certainly is, and it's better to just tuck in and try and re-overtake again, as he did into this corner the last time he was overtaken. That isn't going to happen this time, but he will stay close, and we'll look to just return the favour really up towards the in loop next time. It's a real task around here to break the slipstream and get far enough away so that you can keep the driver behind at bay. It's one of those circuits where it is slightly difficult to get away from the car behind.
Soon to start lap 13 with 3 to go, and just that one shot down the straight, you can see your top 6. Let's see how close it is for the lead, but if they begin to battle, if they do that side by side through the inner loop, side by side anywhere else, just lose 1 second, Barry Hills will be on the slipstream. The slipstream will close him up, and there'll be a 5-way fight for the lead. A little wide of the apex in 1. There's a couple of corners here where the camber of the road is important. Important to get to the apex and use the camber in turn 1. Important to use the camber through the outer loop. And the off camber at the laces and toe of the boot can also be pretty important. Defensive line from Stump. That's obviously not the quickest way through, is he? Oh, has to lock it up. McCormick off the road. Grandy.
And Barry Hills has got to the lead now as well. Barry Hills is in the lead, although side by side with McCormick. Very close, down into the boot with only a few laps to go. Big drama. Oh, that's such a shame for Paul Stump there, who was doing so well, but that defensive line is so difficult to take because it really puts you off through the entirety of the bus stop. It puts you on curves that you don't want to be on, at angles that you don't want to take them at, and unfortunately that sent him around. It's slightly stalled McCormick as well, which has now allowed Barry Hills to the lead.
Throws the whole complexion of this race up, and it's from that unconventional defensive line that he gets too much of the curve, loses control, has to lock it all up. McCormick just tags him, Grandy drills him. Barry Hills goes through to the lead of the race. Ulf Olsen shoots through into 3rd, and we lose 2 cars, and Addy, he's having more problems.
Well, that is such a shame for, well, everyone involved there really. But remarkably, we've still got that 2-car battle in almost looking similar to how it was before, but we've replaced one of the competitors. Barry Hills now leading this one. And that's exactly a position that Paul Stump found himself in exactly 1 lap ago. Will Hills defend on the way into the bus stop and make that mistake, or will he just be a little bit more sensible with this one and do it a little bit more sensibly? Well, let's see. McCormick's going to go right through the outside, and Hills just going to tuck in, which might not be a bad idea, because then he can return that favour on the last lap.
Yeah, not looking for a repeat of the previous time the leaders tried to battle too wide through there. Barry Hills drops back into 2nd. Doesn't appear to be any damage to McCormick. He did clip Paul Stump. Doesn't appear to have picked up any damage from it.
Well, I have a feeling there's going to be just a little bit more space for a little bit more drama on this final lap. We've had quite a lot of it so far. I have a feeling there might just be one more to come here, because McCormick and Hills are surely going to fight this one out right till the very end, and neither of them are going to want to finish second here, as you wouldn't.
No, so the white flag awaiting them for the final lap of the final race, the final round of the season 25 of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. The final name onto the winners list for this season. Will it be Mike McCormick, Barry Hills, or someone else? Is Hills close enough to challenge this time?
I don't know if he is. He's more than half a second, so he's going to get closer, but I don't think he is close enough to have a go into the bus stop, and I think McCormick does just have the measure of Hills in terms of actual pace here. Hills is going to get close, but he's not going to get close enough to even be able to put McCormick off, really.
No, not so. Still 3/10 back as they made their way to the inner loop, and then McCormick really attacked it. Has put more time between himself and Hills. He's just going to go absolutely flat out through the twistier remaining part of the lap and hope that Hills is not close enough and not able to challenge.
I think that should be it for McCormick now. As long as he just keeps it on the road and keeps it going in an orderly fashion, then I think he'll be absolutely fine to take a race win this season. It's 3rd of the season indeed, and the first one on a road course since round 2 back at Road America. It would be fantastic. Excuse me. And it's fantastic for the Super 70s category as well, because McCormick, Hills, Olsen and Morgan are all part of that category. They're going to finish 1, 2, 3, 4 in this race.
The way it stands at the moment, and there's only one corner standing between Mike McCormick and victory at Watkins Glen. He plays it pretty safe with that final corner. The checkered flag is out, and it's for him. He wins race number 2 from Watkins Glen, with Hills and Olsen behind. There comes John Morgan and Randy Shoemake, who charged up in the final couple of laps. In fact, just setting his best lap of the race on the final lap. We have another drag race potentially. Eugene Clark, Richard Kuhlmann looking at Franz Josef Sturm, not close enough to try to attack out of the final corner for 9th, 10th and 11th. And they go all the way down in 19th place on the lead lap, still finishing with JC Hay and others. Paul Stump will be the last car potentially on the lead lap. Could have been the winner, but that inner loop bit many times for many different drivers, himself one of them.
Yep, it was a good race, but McCormick just had enough in the end, really, and it was one settled a little bit by that mistake for Paul Stump, who you can see here, just going to be finishing in 19th position. Could have been so much more for him, and he'll be very disappointed with his mistake as well, I think. Got to miss out on a chance at winning that one. Whether he would have gone through and actually won it, I don't know. I certainly don't think he would have held on right from there to the end in terms of not losing the lead at all. I think he might have exchanged it once or twice, but he definitely had a chance to win that race, but instead it's 19th for him as he crosses the line as the final driver to do so.
Look at the results then. Mike McCormick from Barry Hills, Ulf Olsen, John Morgan, Randy Shoemake, Bruce Poole, Russ Addy, Douglas Beasley, Eugene Clark and Richard Coulomb. And Franz Josef Sturm making a habit of racing his way up through the field. 12 positions gained in race number 2, and I'm pretty sure that's how many passes he pulled off in race number 1 as well. And then Peter Holstrom, Jack Turner, JC Hay, Richard Varley, Joel Martin, Greg Garris, Gerhardus Jorrison, Paul Stump, Gene Moore. Gosh, 18th and 19th, 2 cars that maybe could have won, but to finish first you must finish, so they say. Jerry Kerr, lap down, Bob Kern, Bill Smitham. 2 laps for Mike Grandy and Robert Love, 3 for Pierre Zione, and 6 for Marcellus Breuning after he came unstuck at the laces, getting hit from behind if I recall correctly, but I wouldn't bet my life on having that the right way around.
A good race, another good race, and deserving winner in Mike McCormick in that one. Not big winning margins either, which is exactly what we like to see. Close racing throughout the night, and Watkins Glen has very much lived up to it, showing that these cars very much suited to that circuit.
Just like it's tough to run away in your dreams, it's tough to run away out front at Watkins Glen as well. Okay, let's change his name from TeamSpeak user to Mike McCormick, so let's grab him. Race winner, Mike McCormick, congratulations.
Thank you, appreciate it. Hear me?
We've got you. You got a little bit louder towards the end of that, but you definitely were clear. I've been covering 60 plus racing adventures for quite a while now, and you guys have some of the best racing, honestly.
Yeah, we do. It's a great group. It's too bad Paul's spun their team.
2 of the most challenging parts of the track definitely looked like that first curb at the bus stop and the final corner. Was that your assessment of where you could gain some time if you pushed hard but could also come unstuck?
Yeah, if you hit it just right in the first race, I got hit there and knocked out. So I was trying to be real careful there.
Ewan, you got anything to say here?
Well, I just wanted to ask a little bit about how this circuit races in these cars, really. We saw that big battle with Paul, and you mentioned obviously the incident, but just if that had gone on any longer, how do you think it would have panned out if he hadn't made that mistake and you two continued battling to the line? How do you think it would have gone?
Well, I was hoping to, on that track, sometimes being in second on the last lap is the best way to be, and that's what I was looking for. So I was going to try and pass him. I've raced on that track a lot, and I've been in first before and lost it on the last lap with the draft.
So it does seem like this was definitely one of the circuits that the racecraft and the tactical thinking played into it pretty heavily.
Yeah, you got to on this track, especially. I used to race a Skippy, and the cars were really close, and you'd have a group of 4 or 5 cars on the last lap to watch what you're doing.
So, I mean, the final race of the season done, it wraps up all of the championships, that Drivers' Championship, the Super 70s Championship that I love because it's a pretty small niche of people on the iRacing platform. And then, of course, the Teams Championship as well is something some people put some stock in. We saw Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorrison both at the pointy end here today. How do you rate your season and what are you most proud of?
It's been a great season. My only regret is Road Atlanta, where I got wrecked twice. I was doing real well there, and I might have done a little bit better, but it's been a good season for me. I can't complain.
If you could only have one between a Teams Championship or a Super 70s Championship, which would you rather have?
Well, I've had the Team Championship with Donald before, but I haven't had the 70. I think I'm in second place there. So that would be something new. So that'd be nice to get.
Got a tough customer and tough competition there in John Morgan.
Yeah, he is so consistent.
Absolutely, he is. Well, congratulations on that race win, Mike. Thanks for coming to have a chat with us here on the broadcast and share your insight and help us cap off this season. If there's anyone sort of watching who's maybe approaching the correct vintage, and I say more people turn 60 every day, as a long-standing competitor, you keep coming back. What keeps bringing you back? What would you tell to them?
It's a great group. Everybody gets along really well, and there's a lot of courtesy usually in the races. It's just, I raced into 2K league in the Skippy, and this one's better in my opinion. It's just a great group of people. Joel does a great job with the rest of the administrators.
Thanks, Mike. Enjoy the week off, and fingers crossed there's a season 26 and we'll see you there.
Thanks for all y'all do. I really enjoy your broadcast. Have a great one.
Go, Mike McCormick. Ewan, we got Randy Shoemake again, our winner from race 1, back to have a chat with us.
Certainly have. Randy, welcome to the move as well, or again, I should say, after that one, 5th place here in this one. Couldn't quite obviously replicate that first race quite, but how do you think that second race went compared to the first?
Definitely more difficult to you, and I'd wanted to thank or congratulate Mike McCormick for a fantastic win. That's a Texas sweep for us, and I forgot to mention someone earlier who I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. When I was thanking all the admins, Robert Love does so much for us statistically. We wouldn't have anything but war stories and made up tales if it weren't for he interacts with all the admins, keeps everything running straight. And I just wanted to thank Robert so much for all he does for each of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of your second compared to your first in this race, you started obviously a lot further, a little bit further back, I would say. How much more difficult is it when you're not quite at the front in terms of battling for the win, but you're fighting your way through the field at Watkins Glen? Were you finding it difficult to make up positions? What was it like?
Over in the bus stop, which was, like I said, was everything. In the last interview, everything that Ragnar taught me, I made a mistake and an error, and it cost me quite a bit of time. I had to get back past some people that had accidents themselves, but I wanted to run a clean race. I was fortunate to do that, and just want to congratulate the second race podium.
Absolutely. I mean, just you briefly touched on it there, the bus stop chicane. How do you go through there? hitting the curbs because you need to, but also not crushing on the curbs, which seems to be pretty difficult. How do you manage that?
If you hit the curbs, it bounces the car and throws it out of control. If you actually can get the right tire up against the guardrail, it's as smooth as can be, and it just, everything works together. But the slightest miss, traffic being around you, that gets you distraction. I obviously have not mastered it, but it's so much quicker. You're 4/10 quicker than everybody every lap. If you can get through it 15 times, you have a chance to win.
Absolutely. It's very difficult indeed, but 5th place for you in race 2, and of course the win in race 1. Randy, congratulations on a successful evening once again, and thanks very much for coming to have a chat with us.
Thank you so much for all y'all do for us. We appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Thanks very much, Randy there, finishing in 5th position here in race 2, but of course more importantly winning in race 1.
Yeah, that's the one he's going to remember, you hope, as we wrap up season 25 of 60 plus racing adventures. And so congratulations go to our race winners, Randy Shoemake, Mike McCormick, and the champions, Ragnar Wisloff, Super 70s champion John Morgan as well. Another great season of some of the friendliest sim racing you'll come across, and they are going to have to install fibre internet to my nursing home because I'll still be racing this when the time comes. Thanks for joining us on RaceSpotTV. Thank you to 60 Plus Racing Adventures for having us. David Haynes here, Ewan O'Leary with me, Hugo Lewis, our producer, and that's all from season 25 and from Watkins, Glen.